Today, we're jumping into the story of a region that was, for 1,000 years, the ultimate prize, the Indus Valley. It's a fantastic tale of empires clashing, of powerful kings, and believe it or not, a single moment that completely changed the course of history.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if one single arrow could stop a world conqueror dead in his tracks? We often see history as this huge, unstoppable river, right? But sometimes it all pivots on something so small, so sudden. And in this story, that's exactly what might have happened.
You see, the Indus region wasn't just a piece of land. It was a strategic crossroads, a vibrant hub of culture and trade, and pretty much every major power wanted a piece of the action. From the Persians to the Greeks and way beyond, this was the stage for some of the biggest showdowns in the ancient world.
So to really get why this place was so important, we've got to rewind the clock. We need to go way back to a time when a great civilization started to fade, leaving this huge power vacuum just waiting for someone to fill it.
So you had these incredible early cities, right? Places like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. But around 1900 BCE, the climate started to shift in a major way, and these huge urban centers began to decline. And as the cities faded, their power did too, leaving the whole region fragmented and vulnerable for centuries to come. It was basically an open invitation.
And you know what happens when there's an open invitation, right? Someone shows up. The first major power to walk right through that door came from the West, and they were organized, they were powerful, and they were building one of the biggest empires the world had ever seen.
Yep, we're talking about the Persian Achaemenid Empire. By about 515 BCE, emperors like Darius the Great pushed their control all the way to the Indus River. And for them, this wasn't just about conquering land. It was about plugging this incredibly rich region into a massive economic network that stretched all the way back to the Mediterranean.
Now, what's so wild about this timeline is just how quickly things changed. I mean, look at this list. First, you have the Persians. Then Alexander's Macedonians roll in. Then, a homegrown empire, the Mauryans, rises up. After them, the Kushans, and then the White Huns. It was this constant, relentless whirlwind of conquest and change.
And that brings us to probably the most famous name on that entire list, Alexander the Great. His arrival in 326 BC wasn't just another invasion. It was a total game changer, the beginning of a legend that people would be talking about for thousands of years.
So, on one side, you've got Alexander's army, the seemingly unstoppable force, literally driven by the ambition to conquer the entire known world. But what they found in the Indus region wasn't an easy win. They ran into the Punjab, a land of fiercely independent kingdoms, led by rulers like Raja Porus who were absolutely not going to hand over their home without a fight.
And among the most determined defenders were a warrior tribe known as the Mali. They held a fortress at what is now the city of Multan, and they were ready to make a final, desperate stand. It was right here, at this one citadel, that everything was about to change for Alexander.
Okay, so picture this. The siege is dragging on. Alexander, who is famously impatient, gets fed up. He grabs a ladder and starts climbing the fortress wall himself to lead the charge. But just as he's on the ramparts, a Mali defender fires an arrow, a poison-tipped arrow, and it slams into his chest. He collapses. Now, he miraculously survives, but the damage was done. His army's morale was shattered. Their godlike leader could bleed. He was mortal. The dream of conquering the world was over. They turned back.
An empire's retreat is always another's opportunity. With Alexander and his forces gone, the massive power vacuum they left behind created the perfect storm for a new, local power to rise right out of the chaos.
Alexander's governors didn't last long without him there to back them up. The whole political scene was completely up for grabs, and you had these ambitious local leaders who had just watched this foreign invasion come and go, and they knew this was their moment.
And sure enough, in 316 BCE, a brilliant young strategist named Chandragupta Maurya did exactly that. He saw his chance, swept into the Gandhara region, the same area Alexander had just abandoned, and claimed it for himself, laying the first stone for the subcontinent's first great homegrown empire.
And that's the incredible part, isn't it? The Mauryan Empire didn't rise in spite of the invasion, but really because of it. The chaos that Alexander left behind was the exact ingredient needed for someone like Chandragupta to come in and unify the region.
But the Mauryan story isn't just about military genius. Its most lasting legacy, the thing we still talk about today, came from Chandragupta's grandson, a man who would eventually trade the conqueror's sword for a philosophy of peace.
This is Ashoka the Great.
And early in his reign, after a particularly bloody war, he had a complete change of heart. He came to believe that true, lasting power wasn't about taking territory, but about shaping culture and winning people over with ideas and ethics.
And just look at what he achieved with this new kind of power. He became the greatest promoter of Buddhism, helping spread its teachings all across Asia. He put up these famous pillars with his edicts carved into stone, not bragging about his victories, but promoting nonviolence and social justice. Under his rule, the city of Taxila grew into one of the world's first great universities, and he fostered this amazing Greco-Buddhist culture, a unique artistic style that had its roots in Alexander's invasion.
So, as we wrap this up, it leaves us with this one big question. Alexander's arrow stopped his conquest, but his invasion left a cultural ripple that lasted for centuries. Ashoka's edicts replaced the sword, and his ideas traveled even farther than any army ever could. It really makes you wonder, in the long run of history, what truly leaves a greater mark? An empire's sword or its ideas?